Dufferin-Caledon.
Welcome to this edition of Dufferin Life. I'm your host, Tina Avery. Thank you so much for joining me. You may have noticed around town, you have seen the raising of the Pan-African flag in celebration of Black History Month. This is to recognize the many contributions of Black Canadians that have paved the way to contribute to advocate for equality and diversity, and let's say having an amazing, healthy community for all. And joining me today, we have Alethia O'Hara-Stephenson. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Tina, for inviting me. It's an honor to be here with you. Happy Black History Month, everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Happy Black History Month. I seem to be tongue-tied, so Alethia's going to deal with my inability to speak and hopefully decipher what I'm asking her. But we really do appreciate you coming on the show today. Now, you're the president of the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that association is and the goals of the association.
Awesome. Yes. I'll give you a bit of a background first. The organization was established in June, officially registered June of 2020 and formally launched later on in the year. And the objective of the organization is essentially to lead, to advocate, and to empower Black communities in Dufferin County. And if you break that down further, what that really means is we're providing advocacy. We're providing opportunities to mentor, to empower our young people through our scholarship opportunities. Last year, we were able to award, I believe, 13 scholarships to students right across Dufferin County and beyond. And one of the most powerful impacts is to our elementary school students, where we are trying to empower them and recognize excellence from a young age, and to be able to encourage them on the path of excellence right throughout their academic and professional journey. So those are just some of the small accomplishments and things that we're doing with the association. Of course, I can't take all of the credit because I've got an amazing team of board members and volunteers. So a big shout out to them for all the work that they're doing to make this organization the success that it is.
And can you tell me, so why is this organization important to Dufferin County?
So this organization is important because there is no other organization like this. Quite frankly, there isn't another organization, even in surrounding areas, that is advocating specifically for the Black community. The Black community has unique needs. It's often marginalized, left out of important conversations. So having this organization allows us to be able to advocate, to be able to have a space at some of these tables and have the conversations, to be able to empower the community. And we're seeing some of the many effects of that already. If you look right across Dufferin County, the museum as a perfect example, let's segue right there. We are able to partner with the Museum of Dufferin to have a display featuring Black accomplishments, Black contributions. Prior to DCCBA, never occurred, right? Unheard of. And so that by itself is an amazing accomplishment, because now for young people can see themselves represented in that space. The term, often people talk about representation matters. There's no perfect example than seeing representation in the museum. Can't ask for much more than that. So those, again, are just some of the small examples, and I'm sure we'll dive into more as we continue the conversation.
Absolutely. And that presentation from the Museum of Dufferin is called Through the Looking Glass. And I do encourage you to get out to the Museum of Dufferin to have a look at it for sure. So let's talk a little bit more about how we build a diverse and inclusive community.
Great question, and a question that I have received a number of times. How do you build an inclusive community, diverse and inclusive community? Simply start by having a conversation. Right? It's the basic fundamental element of any relationship. Get to know your neighbor, regardless of who they are, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of, the perceived external differences. Reach out, have a conversation, start with a simple hello, right? And that way you're able to open up the walls for communication. and start a conversation. When you start a conversation, you'll be able to start to understand some of these nuances that are perceived to be different, and you realize they're not so different. They're unique, but they're also welcome, right? They're unique, but they also add interesting dynamics to a conversation, right? And if you look at it even from a bigger picture, from a community perspective, that's where you have creative solutions coming up to solve problems. From an organization perspective, that's where you have unique and innovative ideas coming to life, because you have difference of opinion, you have different people at the table, different perspectives. So that's the mindset that we need to have when we think of diversity.
Absolutely. I mean, each Canadian has a different experience. And with that experience, they can offer input and ideas. And I think it's absolutely amazing that the work that's being done to bring this to the forefront of the community. Now, you also sit on the Dufferin County and Shelburne Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committees, and on the Shelburne Anti-Black Racism Task Force. So you're a very busy lady.
Yes, I am. So
go ahead. I just wanted to ask, we talked a little bit about it just previously, but let's talk a little bit about what we can do as a community, both organizations and individuals, to make our community better. And starting with a conversation is the best place to start. But the community as a whole, what can we do better in order to promote diversity and inclusion?
So we can be curious, for one. A perfect example I can give is oftentimes there are different celebrations, different cultural events. It could be as simple as a new church opening. Be curious, right? Go to understand, go to learn, and then you can start to understand different cultures and different perspectives. I can't tell you how many times I have been invited to different religious groups. So for example, our Muslim community, they've opened their doors, the Sikh community, they've opened their doors to invite me in as an individual, as a sister, right? And so simply by being in that space, it's creating newfound awareness for me. It's creating newfound knowledge for me. So taking advantage of these opportunities to be present, to observe, to seek to understand is a great way in breaking down some of the barriers. And likewise, much like the work that the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association is doing, part of our mandate is education. And the education is beyond educating just our Black community. We want to make sure that anyone who is interested in learning have that opportunity, right? And with education, again, you're able to break down some of those barriers, break down some of the walls, and remove some of the stigma that's often associated with a specific group and culture.
I think it's really important that we're discussing this, and I'm so happy that you're here because, I think that I guess I want to go to which is kind of an awkward question, but and it's awkward for people. So I think that it's important that we talk about it because I think oftentimes people are afraid to say something or to approach or to try to learn something that they haven't learned before. Like there's a stigma to. You don't want to say the wrong thing. There's a stigma that you're afraid you're going to upset someone. And, how do people approach this? Like, we want to make sure that people have all the opportunities in the world to become aware of, their community around them. So,
first of all, Google is an amazing tool, right? Let's not forget that there are so many resources available. You can simply on your phone reach out and connect and ask some basic questions, inquire and learn. But it goes back to those basic foundations. Seek to learn, seek to understand. Don't come in from a position that you know best and you know what's right. It's building a relationship again. You're going in with a curious mind. Tell me about, your name, right? What is something unique? What's your favorite color? As basic as that. And start a conversation from that. Why is that your favorite color, right? Ask people if you're pronouncing their names correctly. That is a great way, again, to break down the barrier. You're not going in assuming that you know best and you know what's right. It's like going into someone's home. If you go into someone's home, you're not going in there and telling them how to run their household. You're not going in there telling them how to do things. You wait to be invited in, and then you ask how you can help. How can you help prepare dinner? How can you help them with whatever is happening in that household? It's the same approach. Seek to learn. And just start with that basic hello and a conversation. That's it. Simple.
It does. And it is simple. And I think sometimes we forget that. I think sometimes we tend to overthink things because, you may want to say something to someone, but you're thinking, am I asking the right question, or am I asking the question the right way? And I think that people put these barriers up and they become so worried about that they don't think that it's just stick to the basics and ask for the information.
Yeah, and sometimes you will make mistakes, but be ready to be corrected, be open to correction. And that's part of growth. That's part of learning. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but if you keep an open mind, knowing that you are going to make mistakes in life, but it's how you receive the feedback and the reception that will make a difference. If you're open to receiving feedback, you're good.
Wonderful. Well, the association is doing an event on February 27th with the Museum of Dufferin. Can you tell us a little bit about that event and what to expect?
Oh my gosh, before we get to the museum, can I take a few steps back? We're also partnering with Orangeville Library. So we are hosting an event in partnership with them on the 22nd, and that event is titled Black Authors, Black Voices. And so we're featuring a number 4 Black authors from right here in Dufferin County, which is unheard of. That's historic all by itself. So that is the first event. The second event is on the 27th in partnership with the Museum of Dufferin and the county, and that's at 1 p.m. That is another historic event because the title of the event is Black Heroes, Past, Present, and Future. We're having the legend, Maestro Fresh West, like the godfather of rap, who's going to be participating again. A legendary award-winning Dan Hill is also participating. So those 2 alone are well-accredited, well-known, well-recognized leaders in the Black community, right? Right here in Dufferin County. From a present perspective, we have Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson and Chef Phil Dewar, who will be talking about businesses and from a political perspective, what's happening in Dufferin County. From a historic perspective, we have great history that the museum was able to uncover about all of the original Black settlers right across Dufferin County. Like that by itself is amazing. Just when you think about the rich history from Melanchthon to Mono to Amaranth, it's amazing. So you have to definitely tune in for that one. And last but not least, our young leaders. We have some amazing students from Center Dufferin District High School's Black chapter that will be participating in this event. And having their voices on this platform is absolutely incredible. So I'll pause. I know you have lots more questions for me.
Well, you know what, believe it or not, Alethia, we've actually run out of time, but I do want to thank you for coming to share all this important information and your perspective as well. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We look forward to having you again soon. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hi, I'm Liz Lozado, and I am the host of the cooking program called Dish of the Day. I'm going to teach you and your family how to make some great, easy meals. I'm determined to make cooking fun again for you, for your family, for whoever watches this program on Rogers TV.
Hello everyone, your host Antoine Hashim here on the couch, and welcome to season 8. Yay! 8 seasons, and we've got a lot of awesome guests coming up, so keep watching.
Every letter of the alphabet is a story of Black Canadian history.
This material should be in all schools across Canada. It should be in all libraries across Canada. Blacks have made such great contribution to the development of Canada, but our stories have not been told.
Well, that's what this is about, right here, right now.
All right, this is it. Wow, that's
This is it.
again.
This is Black Biblio going national with an incredible national sponsor that's making it possible.
They understood the importance of the message that Black Biblio had been created to share with the rest of the country.
It's going to take a long time to help broaden the narrative of Canada, and it's good to see that Rogers Sports and Media, the All-In program, is really at the forefront of it.
Think you know Canada's story? Think again.
Welcome back to this edition of Dufferin Life. That video is giving a grand introduction to our next guest, Linton Garner from blackbiblio.com. You are the sales and marketing manager, I believe,
Yes.
for Black Biblio, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Well, we saw a little bit about the video, and we understand that it's an education program for Black Biblio, but could you tell us a little bit more about Black Biblio and what it's all about?
Well, blackbiblio.com is actually the invention of Dr. Dorothy Williams. She's a renowned Black historian. She's a professor at Concordia University in Montreal, teaching about Blacks in Quebec and Blacks in Montreal. And she and I have co-created this kit called the ABCs of Canadian Black History. She's the real historian. I just, bask in her glow, as it were. But I've been excited. I'm an amateur historian. I've been excited about learning this material because it's something that I did not grow up with. As a Black person, I had very little understanding of my own history. Certainly had a few things from family and so on, but it wasn't really until my later life that I began to discover more information about the Black community, particularly here in Canada, and about some of the connections of my own history. So we created blackbiblio.com to make sure that young people don't grow up missing their history. As you may have heard in the clip, we've teamed with Rogers Sports Media and their All-In program, and we've developed a campaign called "Think You Know Canada Story, Think Again." And it's about discovering the untold story of Canadian history, because the Black community isn't just a new arrival here in Canada. We didn't just come in the wave of immigration in the 70s and the 80s and the 2000s. We've been here since 1603 with the arrival of Matthew de Costa, who accompanied Samuel de Champlain, who actually, claimed Canada at the time as Nouvelle France. So we've been a part of the history of Canada throughout its development, and we wanted to be able to make sure that others knew that as well.
Well, I think it's very important because it's not just when we were growing up that there wasn't Black history taught in high schools and that sort of thing. And it's important that we know Canadian history, and that includes all of Canadian history, not just necessarily the history that has been presented to us in the past. So it is a wonderful thing that we're able to bring this forward for schools and for people to understand the whole of Canadian history.
Well, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying you're absolutely right. We've actually subtitled this kit as a journey of discovery into Canadian history, because that's what it is. It just happened to be the history that you haven't learned and that you didn't know about.
Absolutely, and it features some amazing Black Canadians and their what they contributed to make us who we are today, and I think that's very important. And I'm going to ask you a question that maybe you can go into a little bit more detail, but why is understanding our past so important? 'Cause, 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 'cause,
by our history. We look at the things that we've done, that we've come through, the changes that have happened, and so on, and we record that because we believe that what they've done is important, that it helps formulate who we are and define us, and that it has value. When your history is missing, when it's not being told, it means essentially that you have no value. As a matter of fact, Dr. Williams, when she was in high school, asked her history, teacher, why aren't you teaching anything about the contributions of Black in Canadian history? And he said, because you have no history. So you can imagine hearing that as a young, impressionable high school student. Well, instead of discouraging her, it spurred her on to prove this teacher wrong, because she knew she was fifth or sixth generation within the Black community here in Canada. So she knew there was a history. It's just that people didn't know it. It was deliberately not told. It wasn't valued. And so she wanted to be able to make sure that she could see herself in the subject that she was very interested in, that being history.
Wonderful. So blackbiblio.com, you provide kits. Can you tell us a little bit about these kits, who they're for, and what is included in one of these kits?
Okay. Well, the kits are actually directed at teachers. It's made so that teachers are able to teach this history. We can't expect them to know this history because they weren't taught this history. So within the kit, we have a kit that has two texts. One is a teacher's text and a teacher's guide. The text really is what we have done with the ABCs. It is recounting, letter by letter, an individual, a place or event or a happening that was important to Canada and where the Black community was a principal participant. So that's in the text. In the guide, we provide them with answer keys to all of the questions that are raised in the text. We also provide a glossary of terms, for instance, because they're not expected to know what blackface is or manumission or what the color scheme was and the code noir and how it defined who Blacks are and what they could do and what they could be. It was like a slave owner's manual, as a matter of fact. So they weren't, we can't suppose that they know this information. So we put that information in the text. As well, we include two sets of playing cards that have all of the characters from A, B, C from A to Z, and they represent who they were. We have a little ditty on them, a little poem on the front, and then a description on the back. And it's a tactile exercise for kids. Once they get something in their hands and they can mull it over, can look it over, by osmosis almost, some of the knowledge is right. If I remember my own history with baseball cards and hockey cards and so on, that's what happened. My mother wished I knew my homework as good as I knew, my baseball cards. So, it happens that when you have something like that and you possess it and you own it, you can start to learn more from it. We also include a large poster, which is a timeline, which begins with the first arrival of a slave in Canada in Port Royal. A 10-year-old boy named Olivier Lejeune was brought here in 1628. All right, and he came all the way from Madagascar. So you can imagine a young person like that surviving a trip like that right through to from Madagascar right through here to Nouvelle-France at the time, where he was bought by the Creole family and was baptized by the local priest as Olivier Lejeune. And so he was the first Black student, first Black slave in Canada as we know it. And so we start there and end with a professor named Melville Deporte that finished his career in the 80s after having taught at McGill University for 70 years. So, and then as well within there, within the guide, there are games that, that we can teach, that you can learn how to absorb the information. As well, we have these activity sheets that include crosswords, word search, matching games, match the person with their career or what they did or where they were, born or where the event took, located. And then when people buy the kit, there is an online capacity. There is a matching game, but what we call a making connection game, where choose a number, and then you choose another number, and if they match, the story is told. If not, it turned back over, and you have to search for other ones. And so everybody who buys a kit gets access to that online game, and it changes all the time. So it's something that you can play over and over again.
That's absolutely amazing. And I think that, so what age group would the kit be? Would it be focused for elementary school?
Well, the focus
them to add it into the curriculum?
Mm-hmm. Well, this focuses from grade 4 and up right through to university. When we were first doing the kit, we had a focus group that included elementary school teachers, high school teachers, university professors, and many of the university professors said, I could use this in my classroom right now. But one of the features of the program is that when you open up the teacher's guide, not only do you get the little poem about who the character is on the sort of left-hand side of the page, and you get an explanation of why they were, why we thought they were important. Then there's, an idea about key words and terms that can give you to explore other things. But on the right-hand side, when you open it up, is actually a comprehension page that, that engages people at whatever level their education is, all right? It's written from a 4th grade level, but the links that we have within that part of the page, the comprehension page, give you examples of other individuals, that same individual, the context of the situation. So you can go all the way to university and use that as a study guide. So we wanted to be able to make sure that teachers didn't have to reach far for the resources. We know they're very busy. We know that the curriculums are tight, and sometimes you have to teach to the test. We wanted to show them that there's supplemental information here that you can add when you're talking about fur traders, or the War of 1812, or about Confederation, or World War I, or World War II. There's information that you can add. There are themes about, say, women, or sciences, inventors, sports, politics, human rights, pioneers. There's all of that that's within there, so that you can find your way to be able to find some information that you can impart to your students.
That is absolutely amazing. And I think it's a part of Canadian history, so it should be a part of all history that's taught in the curriculums of schools. And we're just almost out of time, but I wanted to make sure that everyone had the website, which is blackbiblio.com. It's spelled BLACBIBLIO.com. You can go there to find out how you can buy a kit and give it to a local school. And Linton, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of this valuable information.
Well, I thank you for having us. These kind of opportunities are golden for us. And anytime we can spread the information and the news about the contributions of our community, I'm there. So thank you very much for having me. Thank
you so much. And thank you for joining us. Until next time. Bye-bye for now.
So long. Bye-bye.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Your mouth can do a lot of amazing things. And your mouth can save a life.